Good morning, everyone, and welcome to WellSprings. My name is Julie. My pronouns are she and her, and we're going to start off this Labor Day weekend service with some songs. So please rise, whether in body or in spirit, and join us on our first song today. Slow it down for Across the Universe.
Words are flowing out like endless rain into a paper cup. They slither while they pass, they slip away across the universe. Pools of sorrow, waves of joy are drifting through my open mind, possessing and caressing me. Jai Guru Deva Om. Nothing's gonna change before me like a million eyes that call me on and on across the universe. Thoughts meander like a restless wind inside a letterbox. They tumble blindly as they make their way across the universe. Jai Guru Deva Om. Nothing's gonna change my world. 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 Sounds of laughter, shades of earth are ringing through my open views, inciting and inviting me. A limitless, undying love which shines around me like a million suns. It calls me on and on across the universe. Jai Guru Deva Om. Nothing's gonna change my world. 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 Jai Guru Deva. Jai Guru Deva. Jai Guru Deva.
All right, please rise for our third song this morning and get ready to get down. The suspense is killing us. Hey, to write yourself off, yeah. It's only in your head to feel left out. But look down on. Just try your best. Try everything you can. Don't you worry what they tell themselves. You're away. All right, you know this? It just takes
Welcome to WellSprings here in Bell Hall, and our friends who are watching live stream, and possibly later on YouTube as well. It being that kind of weekend, check in a little bit later. We'll be just fine. You're welcome here. You're welcome here. And thank you for being here on this long weekend. Very treat. So my name is Kathleen Higgins, and I'm serving as our worship leader this morning, for which I feel grateful and blessed. My pronouns are, I have to remind this, my pronouns are she and her. And I want you to know that having us together in this room and watching with us is forming a community that is so precious to me, and I think probably precious to everyone here as well. Each week when we gather, we light a chalice. And the chalice is a symbol not just of the past, it's a symbol, Unitarian Universalism, what is present here inside of each of us, that light that shines inside our life that we share with others as well. And this morning we've asked Paul to come up and light the chalice. Thank you, Paul. And together we say the words here on the screen. We light our chalice to celebrate the path lit before us, the warmth of kindness that shines from within us, and the radiance of wisdom that is shared between us and never goes out. So good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Our mission here at WellSprings is to be a community charged full with the charge of the soul. And as I was reflecting on Labor Day weekend, I thought back for years to a Unitarian church, UU church in Fort Worth, Texas. First Jefferson. And being in Fort Worth, Texas, you need some enthusiasm to be a UU in the middle of the Bible Belt out there. And we were having a Labor Day picnic, and our teenagers were being very courteous and super bored. And so we're kind of looking at that and go, you know what? Let's tell the teenagers what all of our ancestors that we knew about did for a living. It's Labor Day weekend. So what did your dad do? What did your granddad and grandmother do? A couple of us knew what their great-great-grand did. And most of the teenagers are going, I never heard this before. And it became a tradition on Labor Day weekend to celebrate our forebears and what they did for a living. Well, my husband, one of his forebears, moved from Poland and was a blacksmith. Big, hulking guy. We've got wonderful pictures of him and members of the family that knew him well. Moving from Amsterdam, one of my forebears was also a blacksmith. Real scrappy little guy from Holland. And then I began thinking about not just what the men did for the living, but the women as well. For instance, I am the first member of our family who ever graduated from college. And my grandmothers, one of them worked for Henry Ford. She was a secretary to one of his secretaries, said he was mean as a snake. And she was a comptometer operator through the Depression, which was the earliest computers. Well, my other grandmother was born in 1896, and before she retired, she computerized the accounting department in her company just before she retired. Amazing. Then my great-grandmother inherited a dairy farm, and she ran it by herself all those years until Grandpa Ernest finally convinced her that she needed to welcome him to the family as well. But so when you think of your forebears, what they did for a living, what they did for you to be here, what they did for the community, that we're all here. Let's just be sure on Labor Day weekend especially that we honor and appreciate all that was done for us such that we could be right here, right now. So thanks to them, thanks to you guys, people, thanks to you guys. And this morning, then I want to especially welcome any newcomers to our community. If you're the first time, second time checking us out, it would be great. We're glad that you're here and that you're here. I hope you'll fill out a connection card so you can learn more about us and start to introduce yourself as well. And there's a link online to the connection card in a video description that if I point this way, it'll appear below me in the video. Now, if you want to interact with others who are joining us this morning, there's also a live chat available on the screen. And to access it, you need a YouTube or a Google account. Just sign in and then click the live chat button to say hello. Now, we have a few announcements we want to share this weekend. For that, I'm going to turn it over to our membership and communication coordinator, Beth Trandell. Beth.
Good morning, WellSprings. My name is Beth Trandell, and I'm here with your announcements for today. Over here, you'll find a QR code that you can scan at any point for more information. Our Heartworks team has a community garden located at the Fraser Mennonite Church. They are looking for some volunteers to help care for this garden. You can scan the QR code to sign up for a week at a time to help take care of this garden. We appreciate any help you can give. The food goes to local food banks to help those in need. We'll be celebrating Welcome Back Sunday next Sunday, September 8th. We'll have a special blessing of the backpacks as well as some other fun activities for everyone. Following the service, we'll have our All Ages Connection event, which will be some great bubble making fun. We hope you can join us. The WellSprings Book Club is still reading strong. You can join them on Monday, September 16th to read this month's selection, The Covenant of Water. You can RSVP on Realm. That's all for today. Have a great day, everyone.
Thank you, Beth. At WellSprings, the foundation of all that we do is that power of connection, making space in our hearts, in our lives for each other. Now, this is the part of the service where we honor that connection by greeting one another. And for those of you joining virtually, take a moment now, share greetings in the live chat, maybe say hello on WellSprings Oasis. That's our private group on Facebook. Or just reach out with a text message or a note to someone else in our community that you're thinking of today. And as we greet one another here in the room, ask before you hug or reach close to people. And if you prefer to have people like giving you a little bit of distance, just stay seated. We'll understand. We'll just wave and smile from afar. So, in whatever ways you want to greet, please do so now. Thank you this morning. It's very warm, as you can see, so thank you for your warm greetings, in fact. And I invite you now into our time of generosity. And that's an opportunity to express our gratitude for the ways WellSprings impacts our lives and the lives of others. If you care about the community, if it's helped you through some times, we hope you'll honor what this place means in your life by sharing a gift with us. And our greeters are about to pass the hats. And if you want to put up something in the virtual hat today, just text WSprings to 73256. A link is going to pop up so you can make a gift online. And there's also a link in our online giving form in the video description that will appear here below. So thank you for all the ways, your gifts of time, energy, effort, money, kindness, attention, and care all support our WellSprings community and the communities and partners beyond our doors. Our offering will now be gratefully received. Having shared energy between us and giving beyond us, let's take some time now to reground into that deep and soulful energy that's within. We do this by doing what's most simple and elemental in our lives. We take a breath, inhaling and exhaling without rush or hurry, just breathing in and breathing out. There's nowhere else to go, nowhere else to be. So let's be here together now as we prepare for our time of mindful silence. We follow these words from Thich Nhat Hanh into our time of meditation. If we want to enter heaven on earth, we need only one conscious step and one conscious breath. Let us cultivate peace and experience presence in this quiet time together. Wherever it is that we are, whatever it is that we're doing, however it is that we're feeling, let us remember that peace and presence are always as close to us as is our own breath. May this be so for you this moment. May it be so for you this day. May it be so for you in the days to come, and may it be so for all of us. As the band is ready here for our next song. Our young ones, our youth, can join Miss Carol in the back of the hall right now for your time in youth spirit. And we always make a funny reminder, if you brought a kid here, take that same kid off with you when you go.
Please rise for our next song.
Bring 'em all in, bring 'em all in, bring 'em all in, bring 'em all in, bring 'em all into my heart. Bring 'em all in, bring 'em all in, bring 'em all in, bring 'em all in, bring 'em all into my heart. Bring the little fishes, bring the sharks, bring 'em from the brightness, bring 'em from the dark. Bring 'em all in, bring 'em all in, bring 'em all in, bring 'em all in, bring 'em all into my heart. Bring 'em all in, bring 'em all in, bring 'em all in, bring 'em all in, bring 'em all into my heart. Bring 'em from the caverns, bring 'em from the heights, bring 'em from the shadows, stand 'em in the light. Bring 'em all in, bring 'em all in, bring 'em all in, bring 'em all in, bring 'em all into my heart. Bring 'em all in, bring 'em all in, bring 'em all in, bring 'em all in, bring 'em all into my heart. Bring 'em out of Perda, bring 'em out of store, bring 'em out of hiding, lay 'em at my door. Bring 'em all in, bring 'em all in, bring 'em all in, bring 'em all in, bring 'em all into my heart. My heart. Bring 'em all in, bring 'em all in, bring 'em all in, bring 'em all in, bring 'em all into my heart. Bring the unforgiven, bring the unredeemed, bring the lost and nameless, let them all be seen. Bring them out of exile, bring them out of sleep, bring them to the portal. Into my heart.
Good morning, everyone. Well, today is September 1st. I can't believe it. The new month has started, which also means that it is the very last Sunday in our Neighbors and Helpers message series for August. And I do want to make sure that I highlight something that Beth mentioned in her announcement video, especially for any parents and families that are out there maybe watching from home. Maybe you're still in bed because you had to wake up at 5:45 in the morning for the first time this past week. that next Sunday, when we have our Welcome Back Sunday, we'll also continue our new tradition of blessing backpacks for any student, anybody going back to school, even adults who are going back to school. I think we have somebody in our congregation who's starting a master's program. I know Don Altimus is coming next week. He just started a master's program. Nick, our intern, will be here. He's in his 3rd year of divinity school. So whether you work at a school or are a student, please come. Please bring your bags next week. And we have a special, tangible blessing that you'll be able to leave with as a reminder of our community for the year ahead. But this week, it is still Neighbors and Helpers. And we are learning from each other in a different way this past month, sharing stories between neighbors about all of our different experiences of what it looks like to live here in Chester County and what it looks like to be part of our wider community together. Our guest today actually has a connection to WellSprings for this final week. You already know about her indirectly. If you were here this past spring, you know that we did a message series called Every Kind of Love, where we celebrated all the different kinds of love stories that touch our lives. And we invited members of the congregation to share a unique love story, a love story that was meaningful to them. And one of our members, Jessica Heichel, shared her story with our congregation about her love for her daughter's autism diagnosis, with her daughter's permission. And that diagnosis was received just a little over a year ago at age 14. And as Jessica explained, it was first diagnosed through the school system. And our guest for today, Jessica Keogh, yes, they're both named Jessica. Jessica Keogh was part of that process of supporting our Heichel family. Jessica Keogh is a special education and emotional support teacher in the Westchester Area School District at the middle school level. And in addition to supporting students with autism and other kinds of neurodivergence, Jessica is a disability advocate with a passion for making all kinds of communities more inclusive for all kinds of children and adults. And I am so pleased to welcome Jessica to come up front and join us. Please give her a round of applause. I'm going to sit. All right. Jessica, thank you so much for joining us today. You're good. Oh, and your nails match our WellSprings color. So for our congregation, this message series is all about getting to know our neighbors. So the first question I'm asking everybody that we've invited this month is just to share first a little bit about your connection to our area. So I know that you work in Westchester. Did you grow up around here? How did you come to live in the place that you call home now?
So I did not grow up in Westchester. I grew up primarily in New Jersey. I did grow up a little bit in New York, moved to New Jersey. My family moved around quite a bit. And then my junior year of high school, we moved to Westchester, which was a challenging time because high school and moving in the middle of high school was unique, and then having a disability on top of it provided some unique challenges, but it worked out pretty great. And then I went away for college and moved back in the area for my second teaching job.
Which high school did you go to in Westchester?
Henderson.
Henderson? Yeah. So you don't work at the same school that you went to?
I don't, no.
Is that by choice?
Yes.
It's a little too weird, yeah.
Although I do see some people, you know, when we have in-service, and
Right.
they're like, oh, I remember you from high school.
Yeah.
I'm not the same.
I'm an adult now, yeah. So when I was looking you up online, actually, just to find your contact info after Jessica recommended we talk with you, I discovered that you're also a beauty queen. I found an old profile of yours from the Ms. Wheelchair PA program. And so I bring that up to say that it became clear to me that supporting people with disabilities of all kinds isn't just your day job, but it's really a passion of yours. What led you to do this work, both your day-to-day work as a teacher and also your volunteer work?
Well, I always knew I wanted to be a teacher probably since third grade. My third grade teacher, Miss Hobson, was really inspirational to me, and she made everything so seamless. I didn't feel very different in her classroom, which I'll talk about later. So I knew I always wanted to be a teacher, and as far as advocating for people with disabilities, growing up with a disability, I realized there's a lot of systemic barriers and things that I just wanted to change for my community and the community of my students. So I just started pushing forward and being that little squeaky wheel to kind of get things changed.
Both for your day-to-day job and also in your free time, too.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, as a teacher in a school setting, I'm sure that part of your work with students involves providing the specific classroom supports that they need for learning. But one of the things that Jessica Heichel mentioned to me when she recommended we invite you here was that you were really more than just an educational support for her daughter. She said you were the loudest voice in the room advocating for her. What are some of the reasons that autistic and neurodivergent kids need not just educational supports, but really advocates in a school setting? There's a two-part question. I can remind you the second part later if you need to. But what are some of the reasons that those students need advocates in a school setting? And then are there things that neurotypical folks can keep in mind so they can show up as good advocates for their neurodivergent friends?
Yeah, so I had to chuckle a little bit when I saw the loudest person in the room because I do really advocate for my students and my community. So I appreciated that comment. But as far as being advocates in the school, I think a lot of our world and specifically our school system isn't always set up as a strength-based outlet for many of our students with disabilities. So I like to highlight the strengths of all of my students because a lot of the times it is focused on like a deficit model, and all of my students bring unique strengths to the community and to the classroom that make them the beautiful people that they are. So that's really what drives me to be the advocate that I am for my community and my students. And I think that's important, when you're having meetings and working with teachers, just to remind them that it's, that disability really is a strength. And that's something that I strive to teach all the people around me, that you can use it as a strength. And then the second part of the question, sorry, I have it here.
That's okay. I can repeat it.
Yeah, do you mind?
Are there things that neurotypical folks or abled folks, also temporarily able-bodied folks, can keep in mind as they show up so that they can show up to be good advocates and allies?
Well, I think the disabled person is the best advocate for themselves. They know what they need. They know what they don't need. So I think that's the first thing to remember, and just creating that space and making sure there's space and time for the person with the disability to speak for themselves. And then, just remembering that every person, like I said, has unique strengths that they bring to the table, and just making sure that we're amplifying those in the school setting and work setting, wherever.
Yeah. That shift in narrative, I think, is really important from a focus on deficits that the larger system has to a focus on strengths and gifts. And I remember I listened to one of your interviews online with someone else where you talked about how disabled folks are awesome problem solvers because the world is not set up for them. So they're encountering problems all the time and having to figure out how to get around things, sometimes literally, or get through things, or do something in a different way.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And just giving people the time and patience and recognizing that we have a lot, that we all have a lot to learn from each other. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So autism and neurodivergence specifically has been a topic of conversation in our community recently. Back in May, we had another guest join us for a small group conversation, Nina Wall, who runs actually the statewide Bureau of Supports for Autism and Special Populations here in PA. How many of you came to that small group? I know a couple of you. Oh, no, nobody here. Celeste and Duncan. Yeah, there were a handful of people there, and also it was recorded afterwards for some folks to watch. But during that conversation, I asked Nina 2 questions that I also wanted to get your take on as well. And the first one was that I actually referenced to Nina something that Jessica Heichel talked about in her story last spring and that I've experienced as well, which is just generationally, growing up in the 80s and the 90s, so many of the public conversations about autism were very deficit-based. I mean, Jessica actually referenced a terrible commercial that's shot like a horror film about how autism impacts your family. And that was the narrative. And it was also primarily, the conversations were often focused much more on support for parents and families rather than on autistic people themselves. So things have shifted today. There are a lot more autistic people out there advocating for themselves. And there's more emphasis on autism being an intrinsic part of a person's identity. So this is what I asked Nina. I'm curious for you too. How do you, as a professional who works with students and families, navigate the different experiences and preconceptions that people bring to conversations about autism today?
So I think I'm in a unique position as a person with a physical disability. That's how I often approach a lot of conversations. So there's not a lot of room for, it to be a negative conversation because one of the people sitting in front of them has a disability, is successful, and I focus on that because that's what we want our students to be successful, contributing members of society, which they're all capable of being. So because of my position as a disabled person, I focus on that. And then I also, I've had some situations where, parents are struggling with a diagnosis, and rightfully so. Like, it can be a grieving process. I know my family has experienced that as well. But I focus on the long-term benefits of knowing what your disability is and how that can really be a source of comfort for you, because knowing what your challenges are and how you can navigate those and really make them into strengths is really helpful. So I focus on that as well and just provide support in that way.
The other question that I asked Nina also had to do with being part of a community like ours, like most communities, where people all have very different levels of experience with autism or with neurodivergence. And some of our families are very close to it, and some of our families not at all. The way that can sometimes show up in a mixed community, specifically around autism and neurodivergence, I think, is through misunderstandings about what's happening. What's going on when a child is having a meltdown or is not responding in the expected way to the adults around them. How do you think we can grow in our understanding to recognize the difference between kids that some people might think of as misbehaving or not listening versus recognizing when a neurodivergent kid is struggling?
Well, I think all behavior is communication. So whether it's connection seeking, seeking some kind of connection with the community or with a friend, or whether it's I'm frustrated and I don't know quite how to navigate that. So I come from the perspective that behavior is communication. And I think as far as having how communities can support people in that is just really providing no judgment. Every person communicates differently, and sometimes people with autism might communicate in a way that's perceived as not typical, but really it's just a form of communication that we need to embrace and kind of see what the reason is behind that and support them through that.
Yeah, and we'll all become more familiar with that the more people we know and the more we expand our own circles and get curious, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. I'm going to ask you one more question, and then I've left a little bit of time for folks to ask questions from the congregation too. But my last question for you is just, is there any other advice that you have that we haven't talked about for communities who are seeking to be more welcoming and inclusive for neurodivergent folks or disabled folks?
I think just providing space for people to be themselves, their authentic self, providing no judgment, and then again, just knowing that people with the disability are their best advocates. They know what they need, they know what they don't need, and just having an open heart and an open mind when you're interacting with other people, because everyone, disabled or temporarily able-bodied, has unique strengths that contribute to the world.
Being curious about each other, I feel goes a long way. Yeah. All right. I see one hand already. But so I'll open it up for questions. Duncan, what's your question?
How do you advocate for students that are nonverbal?
I'm going to repeat the questions real quick just so that people can hear them online. So Duncan's question was, how do you advocate for students who are nonverbal? Go ahead.
So I think, knowing who they are, there are different ways to communicate with people who are nonverbal. So knowing who they are, what they like, I think is helpful, and providing unique ways for them to contribute is helpful.
Jessica.
I had an experience with Keogh on back-to-school night of 8th grade, and she just happened So my question is, like, what are some initial questions that parents should be asking when they get a diagnosis to learn things like that?
So Jessica just shared that Jessica, Ms. Keogh, informed her about some benefits that she wasn't aware of that her family qualified for, and Jessica asked, what are some of the questions that parents should be asking after their child receives a diagnosis?
I don't know. I feel like we should make a document of things to ask because a lot of the times, it's kind of like one of those things where you don't know what you don't know, and sometimes the teachers don't know either, and the professionals. But I think some of the things to ask for is like what supports are out there. Is there anything that the state can offer? Is there anything that other families have accessed that has been helpful? I don't know, I'm gonna have to think on that and, make a document because there's definitely a lot of questions that families have. And it's kind of like, you have to keep asking until you find the answer, and sometimes you have to ask it a couple different ways. But I definitely think, asking any question is helpful because it's a new challenge to navigate.
Yeah, and nobody hands you a handbook, I'm imagining, when you receive a diagnosis for yourself or for anyone in your family. But I would also say that I'm sure this is another reason to make sure that schools have adequate support and funding for special education, because having folks who have the familiarity know how to say, hey, did you know that, is at least one part of how we can make sure that that's better. Yeah, go ahead, Julie.
So besides the school system, and I've actually heard a lot of, unfortunately, people struggling with getting like a diagnosis or testing through their schools, like where else should somebody turn to if they're looking for diagnostics or thinking that their child may be struggling but not having any support, like pediatricians, psychologists, like where would you recommend somebody go if they're not getting the help from the school system?
So Julie just asked if a family feels like they're not getting the support that they need from the school system, where else can you go if you notice your child is struggling and you're looking for supports?
So definitely your pediatrician is a good start. I know AI DuPont has some great resources, and CHOP as well, that help with like diagnostic things, and like the ARC has advocates that you can access, and having an advocate help at like school meetings is helpful as well.
Any other questions? And also our folks online, if you have a question, you can feel free to type it into the chat and Jen will read it out. Go ahead, Carolyn.
You mentioned you had a teacher that helped you not feel different growing up, and were you going to share any more about that?
So Carolyn just asked about the teacher that Jessica, Ms. Keogh, had when she was young. Go ahead.
Yes, actually, thanks for reminding me. So that's something, one of the questions was like, what can neurotypical people do? So my third grade teacher, I had no idea. Again, this was like back in the 90s. I did have some accommodations because things take me like a little longer than the average person. And we used to do like these timed multiplication tests. And I was really stubborn then as well. And I didn't want extra time on these, tests. I didn't want my paper to look different, things like that. But my teacher ended up giving me like a paper with everyone else. It wasn't like, oh, here, Jessica, like this is your paper, and meanwhile, like this person's paper, whatever. Like it was just very seamless. And I honestly never knew until I was in college, like taking my own education courses and, reflecting on some teachers that I had that had really good practices for like making me included. And my mom ended up telling me, and I was like, oh, I had no idea. And she's like, right, that was the point. And I think that's something that, educators can do, is just making things very seamless. And it's not like, oh, okay, this is what Jessica needs, like let's make sure she gets that, because no one really wants to feel different or look different, especially in like middle school or high school, when everyone's trying to like figure out who they are and all that good stuff. So that was just something that she did that was like really, really helpful, and I had no idea about it. Thanks for reminding me.
Anything else? I have another question if nobody else does, but I thought of one while I was here. Jen, nothing online? Not right yet? When we were talking a little bit earlier about getting to know people individually, and then Duncan's question also reminded me actually, and it's one of the things that Jessica mentioned, you specifically mentioned TikTok creators who are autistic and looking up their videos and their stories. When I was thinking about in our congregation how I could just learn a little bit more, one of the things I did was join a Facebook group for AAC users. AAC stands for Augmentative and Assistive Communication. Did I get that right?
I don't know.
Okay.
We have a lot of acronyms. So.
There are a lot of
But
acronyms.
yes.
Yes, Duncan says I did. And there are groups like that that are often for parents, families, teachers, pastors. I just joined and said, I'm a minister who wants to learn more. And you can kind of watch people ask questions and give answers and learn a little bit more directly from people who use assistive technologies or other things to communicate rather than speaking. I found that resource to be really fascinating. I looked on YouTube and found some AAC users who'd made videos. Do you recommend social media, and are there things to be aware of or keep in mind if you're looking on social media just to learn a little bit more about disability or neurodivergence?
Yeah, I think, there's a lot of people on like social media who share their journey with disability. I know, that's become more popular, and I think it's great because it kind of helps change the narrative of disability. It's not something like sad or something to be pitied, but just like all the great things that we do and accomplish. And I know that's something that's been helpful for me as I, continue on this journey of having a disability, especially when I was in high school. Back in like the days of MySpace, having different like people to reach out to that were older than me and kind of figuring out like how they handle different situations. I think it's a great like mentoring opportunity for people who have disabilities to access. And then, there's also a lot of like informational videos as well that have been helpful to me as an educator.
Yeah.
So.
Great. All right, any last questions? Well, Jessica, you're invited to stay certainly for coffee hour afterwards if anybody has any questions they want to ask you personally. But I am so grateful to you for coming out and making the time to be here today and share with us. So let's give Jessica a round of applause.
Thank you.
Yeah. And I got it. Thanks. I am going to invite our band back up on stage for our last song. And as they make their way up here, I will invite you all to join me in a spirit of prayer. Giver of this life that we each hold, and this life that we all hold together in common. Creator of all of us in all of our beautiful differences. May we remember that all of our vulnerabilities, that all of our needs are a source of connection to each other, that no one is perfected, and that the things that we all need help with in this life, they can be a conduit of grace for each one of us. The things that make us reach out to each other and that make us offer something to another person, they are gifts from the Most High and the greatest love that there is. So may we remember to love our vulnerabilities today and in the weeks and months ahead. And for these prayers I've spoken out loud and for the prayers that each one of us are carrying silently on our hearts, we say amen.
Please rise for our final song today.
You can be amazing, you can turn a phrase into a weapon or a drug. You can be the outcast, to be the backlash of somebody's lack of love. Or you can start speaking up. Nothing's gonna hurt you the way the words do when they settle neath your skin. Kept on the inside, no sunlight, sometimes the shadow wins. But I wonder what would happen if you say what you wanna say and let the words fall out. Honestly, I wanna see you be brave with what you wanna say Everybody's been there, everybody's been stared down by the enemy. Fallen for the fear and done some disappearing. Bow down to the mighty. Don't run, just stop holding your tongue. Maybe there's a way out of the cage where you live. Maybe one of these days you can let the light in. Show me how big your brave is. Say what you want to say and let the words fall out. Honestly, I want to see you be brave with what you want to say and let the words fall out. Honestly, I want to see you be brave. And since your history of silence won't do you any good, did you think it would? Let your words be anything but empty. Why don't you tell them the truth? Say what you want to say and let the words fall out. Honestly, I want to see you be brave with what you want to say and let the words fall out. Honestly, I want to see you be brave. Just want to see you. I just want to see you. I just want to see you. I want to see you be brave. Just want to see you. I just want to see you. I just want to see you. I want to see you be brave.
This light may go out, but the source that sparked it is always within each one of us. And together we say, as we release this flame from its faithful service today, we allow the spark in each of us to burn on, to warm our compassion, to fire our delight, and to light our paths today, tomorrow, and always. Friends, it is the start of a new month. It is the start of a new week. It is before noon, so it's still the start of a new day. And you get one every day that you're here. So let's make the most of our time together by showing up as fully and as beautifully as we can for each other. Let's put our hands together one more time. Take us out, guys.